wash away my sin. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. What can make me whole again? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. So precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know, nothing but the blood of Jesus. Oh, nothing but the blood of Jesus. I surrender all. I surrender all to thee, my blessed Savior. I surrender all.
Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope that you enjoyed worship. We will get to the message in just a moment, but first I have a couple of things I'd love to share with you. First, we have an opportunity for you to get some resources at redeemerschurch.com/care. You can submit a prayer request, you can access mental health resources, or you can find our community resource network there. If you are struggling maybe to get some food or some clothing right now, you can head there, submit a request, and we will do our best to pair you with some support. We also want to ensure that we maintain a spirit of generosity and giving, so you have ways that you can give at your convenience at redeemerschurch.com. You can also text to give, or you can mail in your giving. And now it's time for the message.
Hey friends, it's Pastor Nick. We are starting a new series called Resist. And here's what it's all about. You know, as we look to the next year in 2021, we are looking at a time where we're going to face a lot of change. We're going to face a lot of lethargy, a lot of just feeling down because of how long we've been in this, a lot of expectation. And on some level, we're going to be getting back to normal, which sometimes isn't always good. And you know, there's this natural movement sometimes of feelings, of problems, of habits that we've been in. And our faith has these practices that sometimes we can see as a little fluffy or a little meaningless, but they're actually strong resistance. It's a strong resistance against the tide of isms, against the tide of problems and negativity. And so this series, we're going to talk about these classical faith practices that are resistance against these things that we're going to face in 2021. I think you're going to really enjoy it, so stick with us. Today, however, we're focusing on this one, the concept of faith as resistance against cynicism. Faith is a choice when the world looks cynical. And you know, what a time to talk about this, because if there's anything we've seen, if there's anything I've seen as we've watched the world in 2020, it is the growing mistrust, the growing doubt of everything, the growing cynicism, and we need to resist. And faith is a calling on our lives to resist the natural born cynicism that is in us. One of the things I want to emphasize in all of this is that cynicism and all these things we're going to talk about are natural. They come naturally. That means we've got to take an active choice to resist it. Have you ever seen something like Hoarders, where you walk in and there's just so much garbage everywhere? It's just so piled up. It is so awful that you just are like, you want to burn the place down. Like, the idea of having to pick apart and clean it up is just so overwhelming that you don't even want to look at it, right? There was a story about a guy who, I mean, it is an unbelievable story, because here's the deal with him. He was in 2013 mining Bitcoin. This is online currency, and at the time it was worth almost nothing. And so he had saved it on this laptop, and eventually he was going to throw the laptop out, so he kept the hard drive with the 7,000 pieces of Bitcoin he had mined. Now, in 2013, it was worth nothing, but in 2017, that Bitcoin had skyrocketed in value. So he went back to go get the hard drive where he had mined all this Bitcoin. But what he realized is over time, all of these old electronics of junk had piled up in this room, and he had accidentally left that hard drive in this pile of junk. And at one point, he had taken all that junk, threw it in a box, and took it to the dump, sort of like this. So when he found out that Bitcoin is worth something, he went to go find that hard drive and he realized, oh my gosh, I threw that hard drive out with all of the other junk. That Bitcoin that he had mined in 2013 was now worth $127 million. And he had asked for permission to go to the dump to find this hard drive somehow, but there had been 4 years of junk piled on top of it. $127 million. And the reason he missed it, the reason he didn't see it, is because this room was so filled with electronic junk that had built up that was worthless, that he was so overwhelmed he just threw it all out. You know, when I think about cynicism, I think that's kind of what it's like. Is you see negativity, you see people acting up, you see problems in the world, and it becomes so immense sometimes that you stop looking at what is valuable, what is good, what we can have hope in, what we can trust in, and all you see is you lump it all together and you're cynical that anything could be good out of people or out of our futures. You know, it made me think about the book of Ecclesiastes, which is something I'm going to mention throughout this series, because Ecclesiastes is interesting. The author, he actually ends up constantly looking with this nihilistic view of how bad the world is in many different ways. And here's one of the things he says. I'm going to read it. It comes out of Ecclesiastes 5, verse 8. He says, "If you see the poor oppressed in a district and justice and rights denied, do not be surprised at such things, for one official is eyed by a higher one, and over them both are, and others are higher still. The increase from the land is taken from all, by all. The king himself profits from the fields." You know, and what the author of Ecclesiastes is saying is he's saying there is so much oppression that there is always somebody doing something corrupt. It doesn't matter what you work for, somebody is going to take it. And if this official doesn't, the one above him is going to take it. And no matter what you do, things are going to go sour. Things are going to be ruined by those around us. You know, one of the things we've seen of cynicism is we are cynical about people and we are cynical about our futures. And that's what I want to focus on. Now, there isn't a reasonable time to be skeptical of people. There are things people do that are wrong. There is sin in the world. But what I have watched amongst my friends is that there are people that are helping us cure cancer, that are coming up with that are solving our problems, that when our parents get sick, they have a place to go and we trust them to take care of them. And we have begun to doubt everybody in the world. Doctors, we begin to assume that every doctor is somehow making up coronavirus cases so that they can enrich themselves. Like these people who made an oath to first do no harm, who are helping us solve every major medical facility across the world, who has helped us cure cancer, polio, all these major diseases we now have been skeptical of and accusing of lying and creating a global scam. Judges who we've trusted to do what is right and bring justice in our courts are being questioned now because they don't side with our politician or this or that side, right? Teachers, pastors, I mean, if our pastor disagrees with us, he must be part of this liberal evil movement or conservative evil movement or whatever it might be, you know. Police officers, those we've entrusted to protect and serve, who give their lives for us, they now are part of a scheme, not just a bad one, there are evils in the world and problems in the world, but everyone is now part of this skeptical, cynical view that they are out to harm others, right? Like everybody that has been part of taking care of us, we are now got this deep cynical view of the whole broad swath, right? You know, what has happened is we've felt so threatened, the problems have piled up, and when things begin to make us anxious and things are building up, we begin to lose trust. We have lost trust in every major institution. We have lost trust in each other. And you know what? No matter what our lips say about worshiping God, we've lost trust in God. And that's why we cling to these powers and this cynicism and these politics, is because we're so cynical, because we really don't trust that God is in control. Like Solomon, we say, it doesn't matter what we do. Those in the higher ups and those above them are always going to take from us and enrich themselves and ruin everything. Not only have we become cynical about people, we've become cynical about our future. And it's understandable, right? Like every time we planned something in 2020, every hope that we had, every work that we did was crushed, or a wave came and changed it, right? Of course we become cynical about the future. Is it ever going to get better? We had hope in March, we had hope in June, but now coming into 2021, I mean, I can't see any light on the horizon. So we become cynical about the future. What good can come of this? What good can come of the church being shut down and open, smaller attendance, people leaving? You know, I read pastors, I get these emails all the time that talk about people are leaving in droves from the church, and it would be easy to see this moment in time and go, oh, the world is over and God is being lost and America is lost and they will never turn to God again. And I actually hear this from my own people. You know, like, if we don't fight, Christianity is over. Like the cynicism. Yes, things are tough and difficult and we need to address them, but the cynicism is deep. You know, cynicism, it's an act of the devil. Because it's the opposite of hope. You, Christian, if you are a believer in Jesus Christ, and if you're not, I hope you're hearing this, at the very foundations, don't listen to anything we've said this year if it's like cynical like that. Because at the foundation of our faith, if we are believers, it's that we trust that the God of the resurrected life is able to bring life out of darkness. We trust and have hope of a greater future and a greater outcome no matter the circumstances. So cynicism is an act of the devil. He wants us to be cynical so we lose hope in what God is doing in others, that we lose hope in what God is doing in our lives through hard times for the future. You know, here's ways you can tell if you've grown cynical. Do you find yourself increasingly isolated from other people who disagree with you, isolated just to a small cohort of other cynics who sit there? Do you go to your coffee shops just to moan about all the problems and how your group is right? What do you do do you just isolate more and more with people who are just as grieved and angry and isolated as you? Do you tend to doubt every expert? Let me ask you this. If you had cancer and you were going to go to Johns Hopkins or Stanford and you wanted the best medical care, wouldn't you entrust them with your care? Do you find yourself now skeptical because they disagree with a political lean of what's happening? You've become cynical because these are people you would trust with everything else, that you're now questioning their integrity about the science, about what they're doing now, right? Have you grown skeptical of major institutions you choose to lean on in other circumstances? Then maybe cynicism is starting to creep into your life. Do you find yourself persistently angry at yourself, at others, or even God? Cynicism might be creeping in. Or maybe, and this is, I think, most of us, maybe those aren't you at all. Most of those aren't me at this point, but do you just feel apathetic about your faith? Do you just feel apathetic about your future? You know, that's a sign that cynicism is creeping in, because I just don't see how this gets better. You know, God and we're feeling distant because I just don't see how it's of value to change in the next years of my life. I don't see how it's helping. I don't see how this gets better. Maybe cynicism has started to creep and win the day. This is natural. You don't have to feel guilty. It is a natural movement, especially in years like we've had. But faith is an act, it is a choice, and it is a resistance against the schemes of the devil that is cynicism. James 4:7 says this: "Submit yourself, therefore, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you." It says, submit yourself to God. Be a person of faith. Say, I refuse to allow cynicism to take over. It is natural, it happens, but I refuse by faith. I choose to submit myself to follow God and trust Him. I will resist the devil. You know, the Apostle Paul wrote this book, 2 Corinthians, and a lot of people believe he was actually depressed because he had gone through so much that his tone changed in how he was writing this book. And here's what he says in chapter 4, verse 8. He says, "We had been hard pressed on every side, but not crushed. We have been perplexed, but we have not been in despair. We have been persecuted, but we were not abandoned. We have been struck down, but not destroyed." He says we always carry around in our bodies the death of Jesus so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our bodies. Now listen closely. In verse 16 he says this: "Therefore we do not lose heart. We do not grow cynical. Though outwardly we are wasting away, inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs all of our problems." So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen. Since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen, that the things of God are eternal. See, faith may be natural for some people, but I got to tell you, it's not for me. And I don't think it is for most people. Faith isn't natural. It's easy when things are going good, but faith is an active choice. Cynicism is natural. It begins to happen. It is so natural to look. It is so natural to look at a trash heap and go, I don't want to think about it. I just want to burn it. I want somebody to get rid of it. And all you see is garbage. But if we trust that God, even in the midst of the worst years, that He is doing something greater, we look to Him and say, I see something greater here. Show me. And then if you are willing to set your eyes on Him and trust that what looks like a heap of garbage, sometimes if you mine it with God and you look deeply, you find that there is something more valuable that would have been missed if you just discarded it all. When you grow cynical and dark, I've had some loved ones going through some really hard things, and they expressed doubts and cynicism about the future. And I said, you know what? I totally get it, because it would make sense to feel that way. And my only encouragement was, faith is not the absence of doubt, because sometimes we doubt. It's an active choice to dig your heels in. I refuse to allow my soul to be crushed. I am going to dig my heels in. I have doubts, I have fears, but I'm digging in my heels and will not allow the cynicism of people to make my love grow cold, the cynicism of my future to make my hope grow cold. I am going to dig my heels in. Doubts arise, but faith is a choice to lean on the mercies of God, to cling to Him and say, I refuse to go dark. I trust you. I will cling to you even in my doubt of what is next. Faith is choosing to trust that God has something bigger in it all. It's looking at the trash heap, and instead of just seeing all garbage, saying, God, I know even in the midst of a heap of garbage that I've gone through, you have something that is to be mine, something that is important and valuable, and I have to cling to you and trust you in that. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 is the famous chapter about love, and it says, if the love of God is in us, then it always hopes, it always trusts, and it always perseveres. It does not grow cold and cynical as much as the world and our hearts might naturally do. Family, we must trust again. It doesn't mean you have to trust people all the time. There should be a skepticism. We all do evil. We all are selfish at times. It means that I trust that God, even in the midst of a person who I think might be corrupt, or a person who might not be doing things the way I like, that God is able to change their hearts. I still have hope that God is able to transform them and give them grace the way He is transforming me and giving me grace. I still believe that even in hard times, God can make something great. I can have trust. It doesn't mean I look at the future and go, it's all going to be rosy and fake. I just learned, it means I go, God, I am afraid. I'm going to tell you honestly, but I trust that you're going to continue to pull something out, that if I turn my eyes to you, I will see what is unseen in the garbage heap. I will see what is unseen. When cynicism grows cold about people, we can choose faith that God is just and merciful. I want you to think about the cross of Christ. If there was any time in history that we should have been cynical, it was watching the hope of the world be crucified in Jesus Christ. It would have been this overwhelming hopelessness. People, religious and both irreligious, people of the left and right persuasion around Jesus, they killed Him. All of them came together. If there was any time to be hopeless about people, it was that. And what did Jesus say? He hung on the cross, and one of His last words is, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. See, He refused to go cynical and say, forget them all, they're all corrupt. He said, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. If you know that God has changed you, you can have faith that He can do the same in others. If you know that God takes imperfect things like the cross, then even when people are not acting right, you can trust that God will take a mess like this and find even greater things within it. I also want you to think about Jesus when we think about the cynicism of our future. He appeared to grow cynical on the cross. There was a point in time where Jesus said, Father, my God, why have you forsaken me? And it appeared he'd gotten to this low where he was like, God has given up on me. All is hopeless. All is lost. But then his last words were this, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. See, that's what faith as resistance to cynicism should look like. It means, yes, you don't have to deny that you're feeling dark. You don't have to deny that you're feeling skeptical. You say, Father, I feel forsaken. You voice those words, but then you say, I refuse to grow cold. I commit my spirit into your hands, trusting you to take care of it. My God, I entrust my spirit to you. Into thy hands I commit my spirit. When our cynicism about the future grows cold, we can choose faith that God directs our paths. Submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil. Dig your heels in and commit your spirit that only can I lean and cling to him. That's the only hope I have. Here's my challenge for you as we close. When you feel a cynicism about people, when you feel that cynicism grow, that everybody's corrupt, that you're beginning to doubt every major person and institution and group that is different than you, dig your heels in. And I want you to say it this way. You can't say it exactly like Jesus because you and I aren't Jesus, but say it this way. Father, forgive us, for we know not what we do. You can't say forgive them, for they know, because you don't know, and I don't know what we do either. We need his grace. But Father, forgive us, for we know not what we do. And we can trust that God will still work in others the way he's working in us. When you feel cynical about the future of 2021, I want you to do this. I want you to pray honestly. God, I feel these things have been forsaken. I'm afraid. I'm hurting. But then dig your heels in and say, into your hands, I commit my life and I commit my spirit, and I refuse the schemes of the devil to grow cynical and cold in my love and in my hope. I hope that helps you. I hope you make this a practice. I love you, and I'll see you soon.